rolling.
Oh, great, okay. Next on our agenda, I believe, is public comments from any of the public, that any items not on the agenda.
James Kupperman, 24 Atherton Avenue, and I'm here on behalf of the Atherton Library Building Steering Committee. And I'd like to let you know that we have our regular meeting tomorrow morning, our first Thursday of the month at 10 o'clock in the council chambers. And we are in the process of interviewing architects for the library. And then just to remind the community that the final EIR for the library will be available. The planning department have communicated that it will be available on June the 15th. And the planning commission will be hearing the final EIR at their regular meeting on June the 29th. And their meetings are on Wednesday and they start at 6 o'clock. So if you're interested and would like to participate, those are the times for those meetings.
The planning commission is June 20th.
Wednesday, and I
29th.
believe it's the 29th, is the last Wednesday of the month, and I think that's the 29th.
I'm just getting back from Korea.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Not, we'll move on. The minutes, assume everyone's had an opportunity to read them. Are there any changes or corrections to the minutes?
I move that they be approved as written.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Commission business. Anyone? Okay, I have a few things. The town has received 3 applications for Park and Rec. Smith McKeaton, Sandy Crittenden, and Jim Massey. So we're excited. Got three
I know.
applicants. That's fantastic. So
Can you repeat those one more time, I'm sorry?
Smith McKeaton, Sandy Crittenden, Jim Massey.
Thank you.
And I think Pat Dobby said she just applied. Okay, so that's cool.
10 minutes ago.
Oh, good.
The deadline is Friday?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. I'll check.
So welcome. And we're excited to have a lot of interest in the park. The other thing I did, at our lab meeting of the Dames, I did hear an unpleasant comment or airing of a comment that I did hear Instone School was unable to book a party at the park for the year end by a longtime Dames member and a supporter of the park. The class had to pay more to have buses rented for them to go to Flood Park. Usually, I guess they have walked over at Newstart Park. They were unable to celebrate their year end here. So there was a few moms that were
Upset.
very disappointed and upset. So that's an FYI. Also,
That's because they're not booking anything
I
of any
don't,
sort? I
Is
mean,
that-
we know
is that a
why.
cost issue?
was it a cost issue? I don't think so. My understanding from the conversation, and the information that she gave me, which probably wasn't really detailed and may have to be looked into more. I don't know if they tried to book it early and at that time we were not taking bookings. I don't know, but,
Because it's outside, I think they just use outdoor facilities.
Yeah.
Right.
so I don't know what happened, but the parents were upset because it cost them more because usually the children just walk in the snow because it's,
Or the parents drop them off here or whatever.
yeah, I don't know the whole details, but it was a comment, so I just wanted it on the record. So, I did also notice while I was parking my car, the back steps to the water tower are broken, second step. Great. And just as we're making some comments and as we're thinking and going through the budget process tonight, one thing I'd like to try the commissioners to think about is, as we embark on a new year, and possible items for next year's schedule of meetings. For example, we all know we're looking at the master plan, but we may want to think about event revenues, tennis revenues. Those are just a few, and also maintenance by the county library director. I think that there's, as things move forward, it'd be great to know as we look into our budget and next year's expenses to possibly book some kind of meeting with them so we know what to expect. If you have anything that you would like to add to a schedule, please let me know, email it to me. I will create a list and pass it on to staff so it'll be all set for the new commissioners. Also, I attended a special meeting of the council that did review all of the committees in town. The only item that really came up that applied to this committee was the possibility of meeting in the council chambers, people finding it difficult to locate us. So,
I have a problem with that, in that we might not be able to hear one another speaking.
well, my comment, and my only comment at that meeting I did raise is as long as the building is here and until it does become demolished, we are part of the park, and that is our charter, that we should continue meeting here. I think it's still up to council's decision, but it's not open yet. Thank you. Until that is decided, that's just information. I don't think anything was decided. It may be periodically we do meet over there, or the commission meets over there. But that was mentioned at the meeting, and I just thought, we do need to do our walkthroughs and things like that. But I did make the comment that I thought we should meet here because it is. That we would be happy to place signs out if it was difficult for people to figure out which door to come into.
But aren't there other buildings on the park that we could still keep using?
They felt that it would be easier access to the public who may be more interested in not know the park. So,
It's just so noisy.
So you need to come to the park.
Yeah, it's just so noisy that,
I don't-
That was just,
it was a
somebody brought
comment.
in.
Yeah, there's no decision made. We'll see. I'm sure the council will let the commission know which way they decide on. But I just thought of reports and I did go to that meeting. Okay, if there's no other commission business, foundation report, please.
And me,
That's you, baby.
gotta get on this drill. I got
That's
nailed-
okay.
I got nailed Monday night because I wasn't thinking, I gotta do this and I gotta do that.
It's a learning curve.
Let's see, what was, I'm drawing a blank here, help me out. What did we
We
discussed the contractual arrangements with AYSO and Little League. Everybody seemed to be okay with that, no heartburn over that.
We did receive
We have a endowment or whatever the term is.
request that was left to
Request,
us.
yeah,
of
and two new
and
members.
2 new members.
Who was the bequest from?
Cooking.
We don't know the people. Cook and somebody, we did not recognize the
Two women's
name.
names. Well,
And we don't know
But we-
what their relationship, no one
Oh,
recognized their names.
And how much was it?
It's about
$4,000. And the check will be delivered to us to be determined because they're in the middle of apparently a rather
contentious.
contentious situation within the family
A lot
right
of
now.
family. They didn't feel that there would be, according to what Earl passed on to me, they didn't think that would hold up anything to the park, but it was more about what the family was all getting, so but we'll see.
Sometime.
Yeah, sometime.
And then the two.
And the two new directors.
Who are?
Gina Ryan,
Gene Ryan and his name is Bob. Jim.
flagging.
Playing.
Bob,
Flagging.
I forget the last
Bob
name.
Ryan?
Sorry,
Bob Ryan?
no, woman,
Gina
Gene
Ryan.
Gene Ryan.
Oh,
Right.
Gina.
she lives on
Gina?
Better, yeah,
Okay.
Gina.
It
Gina.
would be your neighbor.
Yeah.
Your
down the
husband
street.
knew her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
she lives
yeah.
down the street,
Yeah.
Quinn's old house.
Yeah.
Jim
Uh,
Flagging.
Jim Flaggy, but I don't know how to
It's
spell it.
P-F-L-A-G-I-N-G.
Like PFL, okay.
Okay.
bright side, a little energy, so.
Yeah.
And Earl Douglas,
Yes.
Barbara had fallen and had hip surgery, so was unable to conduct the meeting. She, as far as I know, and I haven't spoken to him since Monday, she was supposed to leave the hospital on Monday.
But went into like a risk,
Rehab. Recovery.
recovery place.
Yeah, so, not a good year.
No.
For them at all.
Not at all.
Thank you. Okay, Dame's report.
Well, they had a luncheon in May. I did not attend, but it was enjoyed, I think, by everybody that I've talked to that went. And there was a lot of new people there. And we are going to have our final president's luncheon on the 15th at the incoming co-chair, president or co-president, Franke's house. And she is really excited. We're going to do a lot of, we're only going to have two main meetings and two general meetings and two, what's the proper term now? Steering committee meetings. The rest of the meetings are going to be, Denise has offered her house twice for different functions at Christmas time, making wreaths, and I'm going to have wine tasting at my house on February 14th, and wives are to bring their husbands or friends or whatever. And so we're going to try and do that this next year, have some bonding kind of thing. And so that's about all I can report at this time.
Great, thank you.
I can't give you the figures. We did not yet get the money from the luncheon, which should have covered itself, but we don't know that because it hasn't been funded.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Okay, then, without any delay, we'll move on to staff and the budget.
Yes, part of the agenda that was mailed to you, we had attached a budget. For those of you, we have some extra copies up here for anyone else who's interested. But before I get to the budget, maybe just kind of a couple of other items, just more FYI status things. Earlier this evening, I passed out to all of you a memo from City Manager Teresa Galasanta appointing Steve as the town's parks manager. You know, the reality is a lot of the duties that is described in the memo, Steve's already been doing, but yeah, this really more formalizes it so that everybody knows. The other thing is, as part of this year's budget, there was money in the budget to paint the carriage house and the city manager's house. So Steve put out bids and we got favorable bids, and as a result of that, in addition to those two buildings, we're also going to be able to paint the water tower as well.
Oh, great.
And fix the steps.
And
Good.
good, all right.
Awesome.
And then also, last week, Steve and I had had an initial meeting with Susan Knox to talk about what her future desires are and plans are for the preschool. And what she expressed to us is that she's definitely interested in staying here long term. And so what is going to be the first thing that we're going to do, and we let her know, is we're going to be hiring someone to come in and really go through the existing her existing buildings and really to kind of do an assessment of the current condition and what would be needed to repair and potentially even have to replace one of the buildings. So we're going to be coordinating that with her at a time. Sometimes it's summer when there's no activities going on there, so that. be able to do
So you're not thinking of trying to relocate them?
Well, what we told her is that, we are gonna be, looking at that as well, and she was, open to that. But I think what it's all gonna come down to is cost.
Right.
And so that's why we thought the very first thing is really to assess the condition of the existing buildings. So we can see, what will last another 10 years and what we really, what will require a new investment. And then along with that assessment, we'll also take a look at, potential relocation. But, we would be doing that kind of along with the park master plan.
Right, great.
Getting to the budget, then what I thought I'd do is just kind of walk through it, and kind of highlight some things.
And where are you gonna start?
I'm gonna start on the first page where, so that it's, park maintenance, which is budget number 57. And, so first of all, you'll notice that there is gonna be some regular salaries, for this year. The regular salaries is $26,143. And what that is, that's a portion of Steve Tyler's time. What we do is that Steve has a number of responsibilities, and so, basically, we split up his time, and 60% of his time we've allocated to the street maintenance budget. And I think, is it 10% of your time?
I think it's, yeah, 10 or 20.
Yeah, I think 20% of his time to park maintenance, 10% of his time to park programs, and I think is the last 10% of his time to building maintenance. So, but that's why you see a budget number in here for regular salaries. The other thing I wanted to point out is we budgeted $151,800 for maintenance of the park, and that includes all the grounds as well as the buildings. And of course, that's performed by MCE, the town's contract maintenance provider. And to kind of put that in perspective, the total maintenance contract for the town that's part of the budget, proposed budget, which includes, again, street maintenance, building maintenance, park maintenance, parks programs, is about $500,000. So what this represents is about 31%. So about 31% of the total maintenance dollars is going here, is being spent here.
31% of the town's total maintenance dollar, or the
Correct.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, and then going to the next page where there's talking about some of the expenses. There's a $35,000 budget for building improvements, and what that is, it's painting and doing minor repairs to the pavilion.
So that's the painting and,
Yeah, they upkeep and
That's what-
as long as that.
Okay.
As well as we're looking into, some parking lot light issues. That may or may not stick for some meetings we just had with PG&E.
Yeah, in fact, after we go through the budgets, Steve has also been working with PG&E
Oh,
to
that's
create
good.
some energy efficiencies, and so there's some really positive things to report there. So, it'd be good for Steve to share that with you folks as well. Now, going to the next budget, which is park programs. And again, you see, under regular salaries, there's $13,071, and again, that's 10% of Steve's time. You can also see, there is contract maintenance services, that this year we're budgeting $29,600 for that, and again, that's MCE to assist with the,
Why the reduction? You had 40 last year, or a revised budget of, you had revised to 40 and down to 29.
well, yeah, the fiscal year 11-12, that was a combination of town staff and MCE, because MCE
Okay.
really didn't start
And,
until.
and Bianchini catering, when they were coming in and
That's what I
running,
was asking, was
they were
wondering
getting
that
paid
has
a
been,
portion, so that shows on
it's in
it.
there, okay,
Okay.
thank you,
So that was all, all that money was spent was basically half of what we earned, so.
okay.
And that's really all that I kind of had highlighted, unless there's any other questions that any of you may have.
Yeah, and one of the things we're doing now is gearing up for the park events. That $29,600, just so you know, currently we're grabbing park staff to do setups like this one and the cleanups afterwards and whatever needs to be done at the pavilion, the carriage house, and these events that are going on. I don't want to see parks, we're down to one person in this park now. And if we're yanking them away to do these events, then it's less and less time out there. So by having an MCE part-time staff person just to do this stuff, they stay out there. And that's, to me, the most important thing is we keep, it's hard enough to do it 8 hours a day, for just 8 hours a day. So
Okay, so you-
that's the purpose of bringing this 558 account. Otherwise, we can get rid of it. But, the whole background of that is for these events and having somebody there to do that.
So you are saying that part of that 29,000 is MCE.
That's MCE staff to run the events, and then do the things like, you know, if we need to do a little painting around light switches, or
Right.
cleaning up for
Understand.
the patios, power washing, and things like Robert used to do for.
Got it.
We're not doing them as intensely as we used to do with all the flowers out there, because we used to run weddings out there, because those are gone now. So we're not the same level as we were before, but we still have things to do if we want to make these facilities runnable.
That's fine.
So-
Okay, thank you.
Just to be clear on that.
Why don't we open it up to commissioners for any questions that they may have of staff?
Question from the audience?
Well, we'll open up after we do this, then
And There's tennis too.
Well, and then the last one here is tennis fund.
Yeah,
And,
The
Tennis
tennis
fund.
one?
yeah, there is one, yeah, that's the last one.
Okay. right.
And just kind of highlight a couple of those expenses. You'll notice that we budgeted $5,000 for contract maintenance, and basically what that is MC going out there and sweeping the courts once a week.
Yeah, it's about, what it comes to is about, you know, when we switched over and we tried the new system, we were gonna try to do it in about an hour a week, and tennis folks weren't happy. I mean, it was just not really working, so right now, we're at 2 hours a week. This $5,000 reflects 3 hours a week, and with that, it's still gonna be 2 hours a week maintenance, but that extra hour will allow us flexibility to wash the courts down a couple of times a year, repair windscreens if they fall down, extra emptying of the garbage cans, those little garbage cans, you can't go a week on those. So just some of that extra time, because remember now, everything that gets done gets a line item bill. We get billed for everything that gets done out here, including setting this up tonight. We've got line items, so, you know, it's great. In a lot of ways, you can see exactly what you're spending. We have to fund these items, so that's how close we monitor, you know, the expenses for this stuff, so. Some people think it's too high, some people think it's too low, but I can't say we're just grabbing a number here. We've kind of done a little trial and error, and that $5,000 will give us a good 2-hour cleaning every week, and have enough time left over to do a little minor repair if we have to do one, you know, and the other things.
So my question for you then, on a quarterly basis, could you show an income and expense report, showing what came in for a quarter and out? So we have, if you are detailing, would give us, the Park and Rec Commission, a better idea of a cost on a quarterly. I mean, we only see the budget, we never see an expense till they appear to us or appear to this commission at the end of the year. I think at this point with a lot of changes and transformation going on with no events, I think it would be, might be wise for the commission, and it's up to if everyone agrees, to see some of those numbers for this next coming year on a quarterly basis, so you see what's going on as far as income, revenue. As we all know, there's been a huge drop in revenue from what we were doing before and what we're doing now. So it might be interesting to track that, in case at any point that the council wants to, you know, recommendations and as things go forward. It's just a suggestion.
Well, we'll make that request with the city's finance folks.
Great.
We understand what you're saying, and really to take a look at the entire park program, all the programs. And so yeah, we'll make that request to them and ask that they do it on a quarterly basis.
It might be just as an exercise for next year, so we can kind of see what's going on and how things, in case at any point we need to make a recommendation to you.
And then another major cost in the tennis fund on the budget I wanted to point out, and that's $15,000 for facility repair and maintenance. And what that's about is that, you know, really the town has not invested money in recent years in really to make sure that the court surface is properly maintained. And as a result of that, there's a lot of cracks, and in a couple courts, there's some real tripping hazards. So as a result of that, you know, we put money in the budget. We plan on putting money in the budget every year. And the thought is that every year we surface 2 courts. And our estimate of cost for that is around $15,000 to do 2 courts per year. Now, one of the things that, Steve did was that because one of our concerns, particularly with two courts, is that it's in such disrepair that we are concerned about it being a tripping hazard. The town, their risk liability insurer is ABAG. And every year they provide $10,000 to the town to repair, tripping hazards or other things that would expose the town to risk. In the past, the town has used them to repair or replace sidewalks. There is some sidewalks here in town in a very small area. And, all those issues have been addressed. So Steve called ABAG to see, well, could we use that money to repair the tennis courts? And he provided pictures and documentation, and that was approved. So the good news there is that the town is actually getting money from ABAG, $10,000.
So the town's only at 5,000, not 15,000.
Correct. And in
Well, it's
fact,
not 25 in total, it's,
Yeah.
It's minus the
Okay.
10.
Well, and
Okay.
I think
all
that,
right.
and there's money in
right,
the tennis budget to make up the difference.
Right.
yeah, and what's in this budget is for next fiscal year. So actually, we still have 10,000 for this fiscal year. And so, we currently, are getting informal bids to do two courts so that we can utilize the $10,000, the ABAG money, 10,000 for this year, so we don't lose it.
So we go boom, boom,
Yeah, and June, July, you have more
2-4.
10,000?
Yeah,
4, so
Right.
we'll see.
good job.
By the way, I got bids and went out at $15,000. I mean, I did worse first, and so I'm looking to do courts 2 and 3 first. They came in at 6,000 and 7,000, so that's 13, so we're already cheaper right there, so. And the second go round, so if we do 2 courts every year,
Okay.
Yeah.
right, so that's, and then we start back at court 1 again 3 years later. Now,
Cheaper.
good courts usually go 5 years between resurfacing, so
Yeah, I was
we're a
gonna say,
little sooner, but our courts are old and they weren't really built to modern day specifications, and so about every 3 years, I think we could probably keep them in good shape. But the second time around, I'm thinking it'll be cheaper. We're gonna get they're bad now, and I'm guessing that in 3 years or not.
because we did them, all of them.
Well,
Oh, wow.
the staff did them, and this
Right.
time, I
Right.
think what Steve's talking about is
Right.
having someone else do it.
Yeah, contract,
Well,
because,
right.
yes, and, in the past, we had a part-time labor force, along with Robert, along with Mike, who could oversee, and we did a couple, we went out there with our little, we weren't professionals at it, but, we did our best and filled in the cracks, and even changed the color of the courts. If you remember, there were those blue courts, and, we put the stuff out there, and we did our best, with what we had. But now our contractors don't do tennis courts, that's, that's something they don't do. So now, to keep a maintenance program on them, we have to, do this. And, to be honest too, a lot of that time that was spent on those courts kind of got lost and folded into other things, and it didn't all, well, I'm working on this, we'll go spend a couple hours out on the courts too, and it just, everything,
So
That's
this would
really
be,
accounted for.
right now, everything's all.
That's good.
yeah.
So,
So now, and also, they won't be down, it's a one-shot deal, they're done within a period of time.
yes.
Opened up and then.
Shouldn't take more than, a week and a half, so. And we'll only do 2 at a time, so there'll still be 4 open while 2 are down, so.
and Steve and I, we met with the tennis pro, and we discussed this, with him, and really, so he helped us identify kind of which, 2 courts should be done first. And also, we wanted to know about his programs for the summer to make sure that, we can plan this so that it doesn't disrupt any activities out
Great.
there. So that's all.
Hope it didn't
we have.
rain.
Any
Does
questions?
anyone have any questions?
No, you answered them, because when the foundation, we heard about the ABAG, and I was thinking it was 25, and that we were gonna be able to maybe correct some of the problems a little bit more, but it's just 15 anyway.
Well, then that's good news.
Yeah,
That's good news.
right. No, I thought
Something's
25, if we had
better
25,000 views, that's good news, it's saving the town some money.
Okay, if not, I'm gonna open it to the public and then bring it back for a few minutes, so if that's okay with the other commissioners, I'll go ahead and do that. Any comments on the budget? Yes.
Excuse me, Steve, you said there's just one person working in the park now. How many were there before?
Well, we always had Mike, who was strictly grounds, and then Robert, who was part-time program, which was the events, and part-time, you know, a grounds employee. So he found himself more in the role of not mowing lawns, but building retaining walls and repairing benches and doing those things. And then we had our part-time workforce that was out here doing a lot of the rose pruning, the more intricate gardening around the wedding area. And, you know, we would pull from them to do things like clean the tennis courts on Fridays, or go through the playground and clean the sand or add sand, or put chips out, or, you know, little things like that as they went along.
So how many?
That's all
how
gone
many
now.
how many
We've
temps-
got one guy here.
How many temporaries were there?
Well, we had a temporary workforce of, I wanna say between 4 at the lowest, and, you know, between 4 and 8 temporary workers for the 11 years I've been here, that you could pull from and say, you know, hey, why don't you work a couple hours this week, and we bring them in for special
So you're
projects.
saying possibly 3 full-time that we lost and 4 temps? Does that sound
You
about
had
right?
Robert who was on programs,
Right, well, Robert was, yeah, half his time was events, half his time was,
and then you had Peter.
grounds. So you had a person and a half in grounds, and then, yes, we had a temporary budget that was normally, I think I've got it on this one, in the
Last year it was
past.
cut, so it's, we have to like 2 years ago.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna have that information for you. In the past are 57 temporary help. In 2008-9, we had $42,000 for that. In 2009-10, we had $25,000 for that. We started experiencing our cuts. And 10-11, we had $4,100 for that, so, you know, we didn't have, you know, we started phasing that out.
Thank you for that answer. And my second and last question is, you say you're back to doing the tennis courts. You were doing the tennis courts, then you got them done, but now you're going to be back to surfacing the tennis courts.
Well, we used to
That will be the
do,
one person?
No,
That will
No,
be your team?
no, we're
Oh,
outsourcing.
it's outsourced?
it's all outsourced.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hadn't
And that's
thought
where
that.
we came up with that budget on the if you look at the tennis budget, there's that budget for $5,000.
Mhm.
That is basically 3 hours a week for a person to work on those tennis courts.
Mhm.
Like I said, 2 hours of it, they're gonna be out there cleaning and blowing. That other hour is kind of a bank account we may or may not use for doing like a big wash down, taking a hose and spending more than a 2-hour day, or, you know, once a week, but actually hosing things down, scrubbing them, fixing nets if they break, fixing the windscreens,
Yes.
anything else that breaks out
I
there.
understand where we're up to. Thanks very much,
Yeah,
Steve.
that's where we captured that, so.
Any other, Denise?
Question. So we have, you said there's one person out here now
That's
maintaining the park. And the contract, the maintenance and services is $151,000 for
That's
the year. And then for the programs, which is, I guess, the areas around the buildings is like 20-something. So it's about $180,000. So it's not making sense to me that there's one person out here. on the
Okay.
So what's the contract services covering, and how many people
Right.
are really out here? Because
Well,
that didn't,
part of the contract services is the contractor is subcontracting out lawn mowing, and that comes out of that fund. So they actually have a company that comes out here and mows the lawns on Friday. MCE does not do that. So some of that workforce is paid. If they need plumbing work done in the bathrooms, something breaks down that they always do out in those bathrooms out by the playground, that gets fixed. If there's other contracting that needs to be done, like we've got one coming up right now to repair some broken playground equipment, it comes out of there. Okay, so that pot of money is paid to MCE, who oversees those items and pays for it out of that fund.
okay, so the structure is that you have a for-profit organization and subcontracting the work to another for-profit organization, right? And the equivalent in terms of people out here actually doing maintenance other than fixing plumbing and infrastructure type stuff would be to you the equivalent of one person
That's
for
right.
the
And-
22 acres?
There is times where some of the street guys will fold in here for a bigger project. You've probably seen Bill out here lately. He's a supervisor, so his time can be spent in multiple places, and Bill has been actually out here quite a bit the last couple of weeks as we solve a couple of problems that we've had out here. So, you know, but he will actually charge to that $151,000 while he's here, so. That's what we've got to work with. And, you know, actually, if you look at the very bottom line of the 57 account, the very bottom black where it says total EPW maintenance, I mean, we're sitting at $278,000. Okay, if you look back the last few years, we're not that much different. We're just way leaner. Well, we're doing things with contractors a lot more than with people. So we're contracting a lot of things out, which is where we're achieving some of the savings and, you know.
Okay, great. Is there any more questions from the public? Before I bring it back to the commission? Actually, you had a
I do,
comment.
yes, I have actually two. One is, has the tennis court income, I know it's decreased terribly, has it gotten any better? I know they were putting out an appeal. Has that increased at all the last couple of months? I mean, it's being used, and I think it's very important that it's a public facility, but I know that there weren't that many keys being sold. Have more keys been sold that you know of?
Yeah. I know the keys went on sale in February, they sold,
Few.
yeah, I don't think there's a key or two difference between, in fact, I don't think there's any difference, I don't think they've sold any new keys.
I
We're
think
still
what
sitting on our
would
numbers.
be interesting, as soon as those courts are resurfaced,
Kind of to show up.
yes,
Mhm.
I'm talking with Alan, and I had a conversation, so it would be interesting to have that information after the tennis courts are resurfaced. And especially after we have 4 of them completed, to see if there's, of course, then you start getting into the fall weather, so we may not see.
Well, you know, when we met with the tennis pro, I mean, the way he described it, those courts are used a lot. Basically,
And they
every
don't
morning.
have, yeah, I mean,
That's
they're
what
used
he
by
was-
friends, yeah.
That's the
8 to
same
noon.
conversation I
He said they're used a lot on weekends, they're used a lot.